Welcome to Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel. Today, we will hear from Armand Mike Varenholt speak about his military beginnings, his path through college on the GI Bill, and the gripping tales from his 25 years in the Secret Service, including those encounters with world leaders and brushes with history. This is a tale of resilience, teamwork, and dedication. This is Diana Mall Halstead, the Kriegie's daughter. Let's dive into Mike's compelling life story, that of a Navy veteran turned Secret Service agent who went from a machinist mate keeping aircraft flying to running security for United States presidents and even the Pope. Mike, I welcome you to the Barbed Wire Hotel.
Thank you.
You served in the Navy. What were the dates that you served?
My service began upon graduation from high school in 1951. I was given 10 days to get in some branch of the service or I'd be drafted. I would have wanted to go in the Air Force, but they weren't taking enlistments. So I joined the Navy and I went immediately to San Diego for boot camp, after which I came here for airman school. I was to be in the Naval Air Force, and I went to about 3 months of school here, and then I was sent to Memphis, Tennessee for additional school. This was aviation machinist mate school, which was my rate in the Navy. I was not an officer, I was an enlisted man. And obviously they took me right out of high school. I had no opportunity to go to college, and at that point, truthfully, my parents couldn't afford it anyway. The Navy was probably the best thing. After my completion in Memphis, I was sent back here to Jacksonville to a squadron called VW4. It was a weather squad. We blew hurricanes. The Navy did it at that time. The Air Force does it now. I don't know why the Navy lost it. It seems like a naval assignment. I never flew in a hurricane. I flew as a crew member occasionally in a large aircraft, a converted B-24. They would give the enlisted men flight pay to fly as crew members. I stayed here my entire enlistment. Upon my discharge, my personnel officer was comparing my scores of the tests that I took. He asked me if I wanted to go to NAVCAD, which is a Naval Air Cadet, Pensacola. And I had a wife and a family at that time, and I thought, no, just give me my discharge and let me go. Basically, that was my entire service, was right here in Jacksonville. We did have an attachment in San Juan, Puerto Rico, on Roosevelt Road, which I spent some time down there too, but not much. Most of it was spent right here, working as a machinist mate. Eventually, because I knew how to type, I took typing in high school. They gave me a position in the operations office. I would make up the flight schedule every day. So I got out of the grease and into the typewriter. You know, they gave me the flight schedule and I put it on a duplicating machine. It was a nicer job than the one I had on the line, taking care of aircraft. Although I did like to do that too, because occasionally I got to run up the airplane, you know, start the engines and check them out.
I bet that was fun.
It was exciting for a 19-year-old, you know.
You have to put it in that perspective, this perspective of a young man.
Yeah. And I have great appreciation of my service because it gave me a 4-year college degree. After I got out of the Navy, I went to the University of Florida. After that, I got a job with the U.S. government as a Secret Service agent.
That's quite a career.
I guess, you know, I don't think of it probably the way others do. You know, To me, I don't think of things as incidental consequences. I think this is the way it was supposed to happen. You know, and it did, and I followed along with it. And it's amazing how I got the job with the Secret Service. I was working for a loan discount company, no longer in existence. And my friend who was working with me came up to me one day and he said, you know, I interviewed for a job and I couldn't get it because I didn't have a college degree. You should go talk to him. And I did, and I got the job that way. He wound up working for the sheriff's office, and I saw him out years later when I was still in the Secret Service, and of course I thanked him profusely for what he had done for me.
You enlisted in the Navy and were working on airplanes. You were working on the parts to keep it running right,
Yes.
Oil, I don't know.
The engines, we worked on the engines.
Okay. And then you went into the office and worked on those schedules. When you were discharged, how old were you?
23, I guess, when I was discharged.
And then you went to college.
I did.
Okay. For 4 years?
I started at Jacksonville Junior College.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a junior college. I wanted to get back into the routine of schoolwork. So I started at junior college, and after a year transferred down to Gainesville, the University of Florida. I started in June of 1955 and graduated in August of 1958. 29 months, 4 years degrees. Well, I had a family.
Yeah.
I had to get out and get a job.
Yeah. You have to think ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. So I took heavy courses. My grades suffered somewhat, but I managed to get through and get my diploma.
What some people don't realize until they get to be older is that you go through college, you do the absolute best you can, and it's a matter of how you apply what you learn.
Well, I'll tell you the honest truth. I went to college to get a degree, and I really didn't care too much what degree it was. I just wanted 4 years degree, which is what I got, and it served me well.
What was the degree in?
It's a BSBA, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration.
That is a good degree to get.
Of course, I've been out of the Secret Service so long now. Actually, I've been out longer than I was actually in the Secret Service, because you have to retire at age 55. They won't let you work past 55.
I guess you can't run with those limousines anymore.
They don't expect you to do that any longer. Talking about that, we went to Mexico City, and we would alternate. We had the open follow-up car behind the president's car, and 4 of us would jump out of the follow-up car and run alongside the president's car for a while. Then 4 more would relieve us, and we'd move back to the car to rest. And the press people were really impressed with us. You guys were terrific.
Like the changing of the guard.
Well, it is, and it was. Of course, we were pretty much athletic. I participated in athletics in high school, but I didn't try in college because I was too busy getting out.
Your plate was full.
It was, with a family. And not only that, my family, while I was in school here in Jacksonville Junior College, we bought a house. My wife was making $300 a month, and I was making $135 a month on the GI Bill, and we bought a house and a fairly new car. Money went farther then than it does today. Yeah. That house, I go by it every once in a while.
It's like a beach house.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I love it.
Very nice house, and the neighborhood, it's on the west side.
Okay.
And the neighborhood has stayed up pretty well. They recently redid that house. I paid $11,875 for it. Paid 3 times that much for my recent car. The payments were $65 a month and $40 a month for the car.
If we could do that today.
Well,
But then we were making, your wife was making $300, you were making $160, so.
But all mine went to tuition and books.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And I stayed at Gainesville 3 days a week. So I had a place in Gainesville that I shared with my roommate, a good friend. We stayed there like 3 or 4 nights a week, and I'd come back home during the week, Tuesday evening, and go back Thursday morning. Now that I look at it and think about it, I think, wow, I did all that.
It's an accomplishment. If you go back to before you enlisted, what was your family dynamic growing up?
Well, my father was a professional photographer. My mother was a school teacher. Consequently, we never used any bad English because they'd correct you immediately, which is why I guess I speak good English today. I had a brother and a sister, both of whom have passed away. All my family has passed away. As I said before, I was the baby in the family. We grew up, my brother and sister particularly grew up during the Depression. I was born in 1931, which is at the end of the Depression. We're just coming out.
And then you enlisted, and when did you get married?
About 4 or 5 months before I got out of the service. That's a story too. I was cradle Catholic. My wife's family was Protestant, and her mother was a tent goer, the holy roller type. And she was divorced and had a child.
Your wife was?
My wife, yeah.
Okay.
Had a 3-year-old child when I met her. We knew that her family would never accept me, and my family would never accept her, so we eloped. My wife was really afraid of her mother, but We told her, and she had an exclamation point, which I won't repeat here, but she was not pleased. She thought Catholics had horns and tails.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Oh, my.
She hated Catholics. Eventually, my mother grew to love Mildred, my wife, much more than her mother ever liked me.
How many children did you have?
Well, we had one daughter together.
Okay.
We had the son and the one daughter. Both of them are grandparents now.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It is.
It's like so fast.
I don't feel old till I start thinking about that.
Me too.
My son has 2, and my daughter has 5. She has 2 daughters. He had 1 son. I don't have many grandchildren, but I have a lot of great-grandchildren. Since my wife died, I spend most of my time alone, and I'm okay with that.
Except on Thursdays and Fridays.
Well, Wednesdays and
Wednesdays.
Fridays. Yes,
Okay.
and Saturdays. Wednesday we play at the club.
Play bridge.
Bridge, yes.
Uh-huh.
Friday we try to play here when we get 4. And Saturday they have what they call chat bridge, which is very informal. We talk about the plays and the cards and one thing and another. When my wife died, my daughter started looking around for things for me to do. She didn't want me to become a couch potato. She's the one that found the bridge club. Mildred and I used to play bridge with neighbors here, couples bridge, and for many years we played. And then she was ill for quite some time, so we had to stop. Eventually, when she died, my daughter started looking around. She found this bridge club and she pushed me out there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm glad she did. And she's the one who found out about the Legion. She and I spent 2 nights a week together. On Thursday nights, we go to the American Legion to play bingo. And Sunday night, we have dinner in and watch a movie.
Oh, I like that.
She wants to stay close to me, and which she does. And she's very, very close to me. She's very concerned about me all the time. She calls me every day.
Oh, that is so nice.
Mm-hmm. It is. I don't know how I raised her like that. Most of the times, if you love your children, they'll love you back if you spend time with them when they're young and cultivate them in the right direction. They'll see to you when you get old.
When you were in the Navy, your actual time there, what was your greatest challenge?
I'm not sure I ever had one. It was just going to work every day and coming back to the barracks until I got married and I was going home. It's like a regular job, really. Just going, taking care of the airplanes until I got the yeoman's job. I had more excitement in the Secret Service than I ever had in the Navy. I'd like to tell you about one episode. I told you I was Catholic. I was in Chicago. I was stationed there for 5 years in the Secret Service. I got assigned, I guess because I was Catholic, to the Pope's residence when he went to Chicago. I was in charge of the security.
Really?
Pope John Paul II.
I remember
St.
him.
John Paul II.
Yeah.
And I was this far from it.
Wow.
I actually stayed in the house. I asked the cardinal whose house it was if they had a room off somewhere where I could, spend the night, because I needed to be available if they needed me. And so I spent the night with the Pope. That was a highlight. I have a picture I'll show you.
I would love to
of
see
me
it.
and him on the veranda. It's very easy to get along with. I didn't have words with him, but I was called down to the door because the agent there was having a problem. So he called me to the door and he says, this man who's dressed as a bishop, he had all the piping and red piping and everything. He says he's not on the list, but he's taken somebody's place. So I listened to his story and I said, I'm sorry, you can't come in. And this is a bishop. I'm a cradle Catholic. He got really insistent, I'm going to get in. Finally had to tell him, I said, either leave under your own power or we'll help you. And he left. And I wonder if I meet him in heaven, what it'll be like.
Did he ever come back with the right permissions?
No, his name was not on the list. He could have killed the bishop.
He could have, yes, exactly.
And taken his place to get to the Pope.
You have to
I had
protect
no way
those
of,
things.
knowing.
No.
And if his name wasn't on that list, he wasn't getting in. And I had the support of the lady who was actually the hostess for the cardinal. After he left, they applauded.
That's great, yay. How many years were you in the Secret Service?
25 or 26. I had additional government service, of course, with the Navy, and that counted towards my retirement.
So you left the Navy, and then you went to college.
I graduated in August of 1958 in the middle of a depression. Jobs were hard to find, and I had to take some really bad jobs. Like this last job I told you about where my co-worker told me about the Secret Service. We were field agents. We traveled throughout the field. It was part of Kelvinator and American Motors. They would finance dealers, And we'd go out to these dealers and check their floor plans and things like that and help them with some counts.
And that was when your friend came and told you about the
Mhm.
Secret Service.
He was also working for the same company.
Now, how old were you when you went to work for the Secret Service?
It must have been about 28, I guess.
So you were still young.
I had to get in because if I got to be 30, they wouldn't hire me.
Now, you served under 2 presidents?
I went in when Kennedy was still alive.
Did you?
Fact of the matter is, I went to Secret Service school in D.C., and we were at our graduation luncheon when we heard that Kennedy had been killed.
Oh my gosh. I was in 6th grade. I remember where I was.
We didn't know the next day whether we were going to have a job or not. You know, if the FBI had wanted it at that point, they could have had it, but J. Edgar Hoover was in charge, and he wasn't about to take that chance. I mean, suppose he took it and another president got killed right away.
Yeah.
He was too smart for that. But we did. We got through it. We went through the hearings and everything. I got sent to the Secret Service, to the White House, not too long after that happened. That happened at the end of 63, and I went at the beginning of 65. So it was only about a year. Got there right when President Johnson was being inaugurated. He served out Kennedy's term, and then he ran on his own. And that's about the time I got there.
So you were Secret Service to him?
Yeah. And I only had about 2 years in the service. They cherry-picked these agents that they take to the White House, and apparently somebody liked me because I wound up there very soon.
Then you were the Secret Service to Nixon. Secret Service don't change according to presidents. You're there for the president no matter who it is.
Yeah, they come and go, but we stay. You know, a lot of President Nixon's staff think they own the White House. You know, they acted like this is ours forever. And we just kind of had to laugh at them, you know. We knew they were not going to be there forever, and we were.
You knew the facts. You've been there before.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell you the truth, they were pretty hard to deal with, and I didn't cry a single tear when they all got locked up.
Wow.
You know, they all went to jail.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
it was some jail they went to. It was a pretty soft jail. They had a golf course.
How was the changing of the presidents for you? Like when it went from Johnson to Nixon, dealing with the different...
It was sad. At that point, I was assigned to Mrs. Johnson. The agent in charge of her detail got transferred and promoted, so I got to be one of her agents. Seeing them off on Air Force One, it was kind of sad because I'd grown quite fond of her. As a matter of fact, 5 years later when I was in Chicago, she got off a commercial plane and she looked at me and she says, "Oh, you're here now." She remembered me after all those times.
That's nice.
Yeah,
were you there?
She was quite a lady. She was much better than he deserved.
I don't know. You know the inside stories. Were you there for when their daughter got married?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I got to be the wedding and the funeral agent. I did funerals of Truman, Eisenhower. I had a job in between the time that I found my real second job was with the Rouse Company. They owned the Jacksonville Landing, 70 other malls throughout the United States. I was hired as the Southeast Regional Security Director because of my background in security. I had malls from Miami to Tampa to Pensacola, all the way to New Orleans. And every 6 months, I'd have to visit all those malls and still work at my job at the Landing. But I loved that job. The people loved each other there.
That's a good thing.
Truly was a family. You know, it's been closed down for quite some time. About a year ago, we got together, and the boss got to be a good friend of mine. I mean, really, more than boss employee. We went for a luncheon, and before the luncheon, I had a doctor's appointment. But I did manage to go. And as I left, he grabbed me and hugged me. I thought he was going to break my back. But I love them all those girls. I just loved them all. That was the most happy I believe I ever was. And the longest hours I worked. You know, times like New Year's Eve, the 4th of July, Florida-Georgia game. You're dealing with all those drunks. I used to hire off-duty police officers. I'd hire as many as 20 off-duty police officers.
What was your greatest challenge after you left the Secret Service working for the Rouse Company?
Well, it's those weekends, those times that I told you, I'd come to work at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and work till 2 or 3 in the night, you know, the next morning, and dealing with the drunks. I used to dread the Florida-Georgia game because that was probably the worst of all. I don't know what the drunks do now. The Landing's not there anymore.
Well, now they have the new technology with facial recognition and...
No. We just grabbed him by the collar and threw him in the van.
But you seem to be able to, because of all these things that you've done, you're flexible, but you also understand, but you stand your ground.
Fortunately, I was placed in positions where I could deal with it. I wasn't really over my head anywhere I was. I guess I'm pretty intelligent. I don't know.
What was your greatest challenge in the Secret Service?
Well, I'm not sure I ever had one. The thing with the Pope is probably the thing that stands out most because I'm a Catholic, that I got to do that. There were other things. We had field offices throughout the United States. They're having a problem now. When I was in, you started as an agent. Everybody did. Nobody was hired at the top, okay? Everybody started as an agent, and you worked your way up. And like cream, the good agents rose to the top. And those were the ones that we would recommend. We were under Treasury then because of counterfeiting. We would recommend to the Secretary of the Treasury, who we thought would be the best director. And he would then take it to the president. Now, you have people in there that haven't been in very long. The assistant director now is only 10 years in the service. You need 15 to 20 years on the ground knowing what it's like. We used to have, I hesitate to use the word, but it's true, an esprit de corps. We supported the people that we worked with. Now it doesn't seem like it's like that. From what I see being on the outside, it seems like we've lost some of that real dedication that's necessary to do that kind of job.
Maybe that's the word for it, dedication.
Well, it's definitely a word that needs to be in every agent's heart.
Do all agents have prior military background?
What we found, the best agents either have prior military service or have competed in organized sports, mostly college sports or the military, because they're used to working as a team.
That makes sense. And see, the military is a team.
It is.
I can see how the Secret Service would be a team, and your security work, that's all teamwork.
We had 3 shifts around the clock. We worked 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and 12 to 8. When we traveled, we would work together, eat together, and sleep together. In the hotels, we were together all the time, and there's no room for dissension. Just can't have it. You have to get along. Don't know that they have that now. The last director they had was a friend of the First Lady. She was an agent who was a friend of the First Lady's. The president made her director. She was the one who was in charge when Trump got shot.
I remember that. Oh, I bet you were all over that politically.
They were after her something fierce. She finally resigned, which is what she should have done.
Now, if the team that you had together back then had been in place when Trump was shot, would that have happened?
No. When I was in charge of a movement like that, there would be a command police officer at my elbow with a radio. It wouldn't have happened.
I look at some of the footage and I'm just dumbfounded. Thankfully, he didn't lose his life.
I did numerous advances, domestic and foreign. Yeah. I had a serious problem in Sydney, Australia with demonstrators, but the police were able to get us out of it because they had police on horseback, and they drove right through the crowd, with all those horses, and we followed right through them. But see, that's the advantage of having a police officer with you.
Now, you went to Australia with a president?
Went there with Johnson. I did the advance for his visit to Sydney, Australia. We had like 4 stops. You would go with a staff member who had horsepower, and together you would plan a trip. Well, first I had an advance in San Antonio. Have you ever been to San Antonio?
Yes.
You know the river that goes
Riverwalk.
Okay. They wanted to put President Johnson on a barge at night and run him down the river. Okay. And I got on the telephone. I don't know if you know the name Clint Hill. He's the one that jumped on the back of the car, pushed Mrs. Kennedy back in the car. Yeah. He was a good friend of mine. Anyway, he was at the ranch. He was the boss that night. And I called him and I said, Clint, I'm not going to do this. If you insist on doing it, I'll resign. But we're not. He said, well, Mike, just calm down. I'll go talk to the president. They canceled the trip. See, I can't tell the president, you can't do this. I had to tell him the reasons he can't do it and let him decide. If you do it diplomatically, like I did, I went through right channels. The president's no fool, he knows.
It's like a sitting duck there with all the hotels and...
There's a warehouse district along there somewhere.
Well, that's true too.
And his staff member who was in charge really got into me about that because it made him look like a fool. I just let him go on, you do your job and I'll do mine.
Did your service in the Navy or the Secret Service or even with the Rouse Company, did it inspire anyone else to serve?
My daughter wanted to become an agent, but I talked her out of it. I know the kind of life women in law enforcement live, and it's not good. They don't have a chance to settle down, have a family, and I talked her out of it.
If you had it to do over again with any of your life choices, would you do them?
I think I'd probably drink a little less than I did. No, my life went the way it should have, I do believe. People ask me, how are you? And I said, well, I'm probably better than I should be. That's my attitude. No, I have no regret. 8 or 9 years ago, I was in much better shape than I am now.
You have to look at 8 or 9 years ago. I mean, you're 92. That's a blessing right there.
Well, when I was 80, I was still fairly active. At that time, we lived over in Aldwyn Park, and I had a pool. And I used to get out there at night and lay on floats and look at the stars.
Well, I thank you for talking with me.
Well, you're most welcome. I sure have enjoyed this.
Well, thank you. If you are a veteran or you know someone who is, I urge you, share your story. Whether you fought in battle or worked behind the scenes, your experience matters. It's not just history, it's our history. It is a history we cannot afford to lose. At Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel, we are committed to preserving these stories, but we need your help. Subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends and family, and most importantly, if you have a story to tell, reach out to us on social media or email. Both are listed in the description. Every veteran's story deserves to be heard, remembered, and honored. So join us on this journey. Together, we can ensure that Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel live on. If you would like to purchase a copy of my dad's memoir, Writings from the Barbed Wire Hotel, please click the link in the description. In the back of almost 800 pages is an index of all the sources I used to research my dad's military career and time as a prisoner of war, which may help you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Let's spread the word and keep these stories alive. And remember, every story matters, especially yours. Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel was written by and produced by Diana Mall Halstead. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Thanks for listening.